So we are back for another acceptable casualties battle report. Today we have 1,500 points of Tankovy taking on 1,500 points of Panzer Kampfgruppe. We'll be playing Cauldron. Back in a second to go over the lists and the deployment. So here we have my 1,500 points of Red Army Tankovy. It's going to be confident trained. Down here we have the 1IC in a T-34-85. Over here we have 7 T-34-85s. Over here we have 10 T-34-76s with the cupolas and everything else that goes with it. Over here we have 3 of the ISU 122s. Back there we have a light mortar platoon with observer. And over there we have our Spetsnaz, just 2 of them. So altogether I think it's like 1485. So I'll be back in a second to go over Vin's German list. So here we have 1,500 points of Panzer Kampfgruppe. They're going to be the Wiking list. Vin has the 1IC and 2IC down here in Panzer IVs, a platoon of Panzer IVs, a platoon of Stugs, a platoon of Panthers, and then a platoon of just the regular SS infantry. One guy from each of the half tracks has a Panzerfaust. They all have MGs, and then he has the SMG Panzerfaust with that group as well. These guys are going to be fearless trained, right, Vin?
Yep.
Across the board. Okay, so that's roughly 1,500 points there of the Panzer Kampfgruppe. We'll be back in a second to go over deployment for Cauldron. So we are back for deployment. I ended up winning the roll-off, so I decided to attack. We'll go over the objectives first. So I placed one right here, just along the rail line right there, and I placed my second one over here on this side. Vin's defensive position he chose was this little section over here for Cauldron. I ended up rolling. I was able to put my observer and my ISU 122s. I was able to pick, so I brought them over here on this this table corner down there. And over here, I brought in my platoon of T-34-76s. Over here, I ended up rolling a 4, so they got stuck in this corner. Vin, for his deployment, placed his platoon of infantry, the SS, inside the what the hell is it? I'm drawing a blank here.
And the train station.
The train station. Jesus, man. All right, so yeah, the platoon's in the train station, and he has one guy strung out here along the woods. And then the commander is on the tracks right there, just waiting for the train to come by and hit him and put him out of his misery because he knows this is going to be an ugly game for him. Down over here, Vin decided to bring in the Stugs for immediate ambush, and he has 2IC attached to them as well. They're kind of placed over here, lined up at those T-34s and out of line of sight of the ISU 122s. So we'll be back in a second for top of turn 1 for the Soviets. So we are back for the top of turn 1 for the Soviets. Pretty stacked turn, not a lot going on over here. So for movement, I ended up failing to get my reserves in. I rolled up my ISU 122s up to over here. In the shooting phase, I really didn't have any good options for shooting the Stugs that were over here from this position. So I just opened up with some machine gun fire. I got 4 hits. Vin took them all on the guys inside the train station. He failed one, but I failed the firepower. Down over here with the T-34s, I fired 20 cannon shots down here. I hit on 9 of them. Vin made, what, all your saves? Yeah, all your saves except for 1. He really didn't need to do much, though. I mean, I think it was just 1-ups to bail. I was able to bail out one of the Stugs in the back. So that's pretty much all that happened here for top turn 1 for the Soviets. We'll be back in a second for bottom turn 1 for the Germans. So we are back for the bottom of turn 1 for the Germans. This turn, Vin opted not to move at all with anybody and just shoot. So he stayed on the ground with the infantry platoon that's inside the train station. And with the Stugs and the 2IC, Vin fired 10 shots down into the Tankovy blob right there. He was able to get 2 bales and blow 1 tank out. So I kind of dodged a bullet there in that return fire. So we'll be back in a second for the top of turn 2. I got 2 reserve dice. Hopefully I can get some guys coming on the table. So I'll be back in a flash. So we are back for top of turn 2 for the Soviets, and the noose is being tightened. Over here, we pushed up our T-34s to get a little bit closer and kind of get a little more pressure on that objective in this flank. And then over here, we pushed up the ISU 122s. I failed to get reserves in again this turn, which is kind of unfortunate. In the shooting phase, All we were able to do down here was get a bail. I failed 2 firepowers. I could have blown up one tank and bailed an extra one, but that didn't really work out from those T-34s. And then over here, I was able to get in and assault and take out the one infantry base that was there because he did not have the Faust. Those are the guys that are inside the building, luckily. So I'm able to hold that objective right now. During consolidation after the assault, I ended up bogging down one of these guys right here, but I still have a chance to get some shots out there with the machine guns next turn if I can't get him rolling again. So I'll be back in a second for bottom of turn 2 for the Germans. We're going to see what Vin's going to do here with these Stugs. They gotta withstand at least one more decent volley of fire. So I'll be back in a flash. So we are back for bottom of turn 2 here for the Germans. On this turn, Vin decided to move up his Stugs and 2 IC to that rail line right there so they can kind of get out of the view of those ISU 122s. And the gamble kind of paid off for Vin. So he was able to fire 5 shots, got 5 hits. He was able to blow up 2 of the tanks there and get another bail over here. So pretty good round of shooting there for Vin. Those guys are down to, well, five active tanks and 2 more I can bring back, but that's really not that great. So I'll be back in a second here for the top of turn 3. I got the T-34-85s definitely coming in. We'll see if we can get any more reserves in as well. So I'll be back in a flash. So you're back here for top of turn 3. Pretty good turn. Could have been a little bit better. So on my reserve dice, I have my 3 dice. I rolled 2 6s and a 5. So I got my mortar team in on that back table edge over there. The Spetsnaz are back down over there. And then over here, my T-34-85s. So in the movement phase, I ended up pushing up the T-34-76s around the back to kind of put Vin in a little bit of a vice right there. And then over here, I was able to unbog and reposition one of those ISU 122s. In the shooting phase, between the T-34-85s and 76s, I didn't get as many hits as I was hoping to get. The T-34-85s, I was only able to get 3 hits. We were able to blow up a tank, get a bail, and then the 76s, I got a couple other hits, and we got another bail, another explode result. So overall, pretty decent shooting. I wish it would have been a little bit better, but we'll see how it goes. Vin has his delayed reserve dice starting up this turn, so hopefully they don't go too well for him, and I can maybe get one more turn of shooting in before the reserves get in. So we'll be back in a second for bottom turn 3 for the Germans. So we're back for bottom of turn 3 for the Germans. Pretty good turn here for Vin. In the movement phase, he stayed still with everybody. He failed to unpin the infantry platoon that was over here. And with the Stugs, he was able to get both guys back in the tank. In the shooting phase, Vin opted to take some shots at the T-34-76s. And as you can see, they are no longer on the table. Vin was able to blow up 2, bail 2, and then I ended up failing my motivation. And I was just outside of range with my 1 IC to keep those guys on the table. So they ended up breaking off the table. So that's what we're looking at here for bottom of turn 3. I have everybody on the table for my next turn, top of turn 4, so there's no more reserves coming in for me. So what I got is what I got. So we'll be back in a flash to see how it goes. So we are back for the top of turn 4. Pretty good turn for us. Not fantastic, but pretty good. So in the movement phase, we ended up keeping these guys parked here on that objective. We failed to dig in our mortars over there. Our Spetsnaz, we moved up, and then we ended up going at the double, and we got bogged down with one of the half tracks over there, but that's not really that big of a deal. Over here, we ended up staying put with the T-34-85s, and we fired 16 cannon shots down here into the Stugs, and we ended up blowing up 2 of them, and then we just dumped a bunch of, we made the other guy just bail a bunch of times. He ended up failing that motivation to get back in and stick around. So he
one dice.
One die, yes. So he failed and broke off the table. So the Stug platoon is gone. So we're going to bottom of turn 4 for the Germans. Vin has 2 reserve dice coming in right now. So hopefully for Vin's sake, he can get some of those tanks on the table, or this might be a tough going here for turn 5 going on. I think we'll be able to get some positioning in to make life a little bit worse for Vin if he can't get one of these tank platoons on the table. So we'll be back in a flash. So we are back for bottom of turn 4. Vin was able to unpin the infantry platoon that's still sitting inside the train station there. For his reserves, he was able to get in the Panther platoon on one of his 2 dice. They ended up moving it up over here in the shooting phase. Vin fired 3 shots. He was able to get 1 hit, and he took out one of the T-34-85s right there. He ended up failing a stormtrooper move, so we had to stay parked where he's at. So I'll be back in a second for top of turn 5 for the Soviets. I don't know what I'm going to do, but hopefully it turns out good. So I'll be back in a second. So we are back for top of turn 5 for the Soviets, and this turn went pretty good for us. Things kind of worked out. So in the movement phase, we took our platoon of T-34-85s and we pushed them up around the backside of that hill. So these Panthers, even if they move, they aren't going to be able to get a shot off on those guys. We took our Spetsnaz and we just kind of positioned them in the woods over there to get some MG shots down on that platoon that was there. The ISU 122s, we ended up pushing up into assault range, and then the mortars we ended up keeping back there failed to dig in again. So in the shooting, we pretty much dumped everything we had into this platoon. We were able to kill 2 of the bases, right? Yeah, 2 of the bases in shooting between everybody. So yeah, we weren't really doing anything. We were able to pin them down though. And then we went in for assaults, and we ended up going in with the ISU 122s and the assaults. So we got in there, we failed. I think our initial attack, Vin ended up passing tank terror, went in there, he blew up a tank. I made a save on another one. Things went pretty good for Vin that first turn. And then the second turn, I was able to get 2 kills off. And then that kind of knocked him down to 1 base left, which was the command base over there. Vin failed his attack on that round of combat. And then I ended up killing him with my last attack with my commander on that platoon right there. So they ended up getting beaten back. Vin passed his motivation to keep his guys on the table. I passed my motivation to keep my guys on the table. So as the way things look right now, Vin's still holding that objective back there, and he needs to keep that guy alive as long as he possibly can. So when we come back, Vin's got to do last man standing for that, and then those Panzer IVs are automatically coming on, so we'll see what they're able to do. So we'll be back in a flash. Bottom turn 5 for the Germans. So we are back for the bottom of turn 5 for the Germans. This turn, Vin was able to keep the one guy left on the table as last man standing and unpin him, and then he just kind of just stayed in his foxhole there and hung out. Over here, he brought on the Panzer IVs, and he pushed up the Panthers on this side. In the shooting phase, the Panthers fired a couple shots down there trying to pull the ISU 122 off, and Vin couldn't get a hit. Down here, the Panzer IVs, they fired in those T-34-85s that were right here. Vin was able to get a bail and blow up one of the tanks. Unfortunately for Vin, this is the bottom of turn 5, which goes in the top of turn 6 for me, and I have the ISU 122 on that objective, and nobody's contesting it, so that ended up being end of game victory for the Soviets. We'll be back in a second to go over the end game recap and kind of talk about how this one went. So we are back here for the end of game recap. Like I said, victory for the Soviets. This really came down to one move I think that I made that kind of paid off, but we'll take it from the top and then we'll work into that. So for my Soviets for deployment, obviously it was a random deployment, so there really wasn't much thought going into this one besides getting my ISU 122s over there with the observer, and then back on this side getting those T-34-76s. So my battle plan going into it was obviously going to be to push up these ISU 122s and get control of that objective. Since that guy wasn't a Panzerfaust base, over there, just one of the MG teams. He was kind of easy pickings for that first assault, which kind of paid off. And I was able to kind of sit there and babysit that objective for a couple turns until I had the opportunity to whittle the guys down inside the train station over here with those mortars and just fire from these guys. So that was my plan for holding down that objective. Up over here, the T-34-76 graveyard, as you can see how that worked out. My initial plan was going to be I was going to push aggressive with them, but when Vin really just dedicated all of his Stugs to holding that flank, I kind of figured I'd have to at least take a round or two of shooting to see if I can get lucky and whittle some of those guys down, because I wasn't getting any support from those ISU 122s. And I was really waiting for those T-34-85s to get on the table, but they got there 1 turn too late, which was kind of unfortunate. So what I was thinking with that was hold the line there, wait for the T-34-85s, but through 2 rounds of fire, they really weren't able to hold up all that well. But when the T-34s came in along this hill right here, that kind of turned the tables for me right there. I was willing to give up some side shots if Finn would have gotten the reserves in, which he did, but I was able to take those Stugs off the table pretty early, a little bit later than I wanted to, but early enough to where I was able to make the difference. And I was really hoping to get those Spetsnaz out and about a little bit quicker. But when Vince still had the Stugs there, I was kind of worried about going at the double and really pushing it too much because that would have been an easy platoon kill. And the way things were going with the 76s, I really didn't want to afford. I couldn't afford to lose another platoon that easily. And I was down to one ISU 122 after that assault. So I wouldn't want to take the chance with that company command test, especially with only being confident. But excuse me. The big play for me was down here with those ISU 122s. When I was starting to get pressure on that flank over there, and really got those two bases killed off here and kind of lessen the impact of what Vin can do in close combat. I figured it was going to be now or never before Vin got those panzers in. So I went in for the assault. I did take heavy casualties in it, but I was able to beat Vin back off that objective. And I knew by doing that, he wasn't going to be able to cover the ground to get back in and contest over here. So his only way to be able to come back and win the game, or at least stay in the game, was going to be long distance shots at a front armor 9, even with the Panthers. That's still a pretty tall order to tackle. So the gamble ended up paying off pretty well. Ended up winning me the game. So I'm kind of happy how that worked out. But Vin, I don't know, what were you thinking as far as how things played out for you?
Things I think played out pretty well. I mean, aside from the end result. I was actually pretty happy the way that the Stoves fought off that whole flank. That was just really good.
Yeah, they held the line. Goals. Yeah, they held the line really well on that side.
So that kind of bought me a lot of time. Over here, I think was just the biggest thing that I had to worry about. And obviously, when these guys came in,
yeah, but I biffed that first round of shooting, which kept those Stugs on the table a little bit longer than they should have, which ended up paying off pretty nice for you getting those 76s off the table.
Yeah, that was probably the big highlight for them. Unfortunately, with my Panthers, didn't do much. They didn't really do much. I would say the Stugs were pretty much just
They were good.
Yeah, the gold of the group right there, and obviously the infantry fighting off 2 large tanks was huge.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the thing with in the beginning when you got those 2 initial reserves off because you had to do random deployment.
I got perfect dice as far as deployment went. Yeah, the one I got to pick, and then the 76 just landed in that corner, so that was huge.
Yeah, I was just I'm totally surrounded in the worst possible situation right now.
Yeah, looking at how the game played out, the only thing looking at maybe what you did, and I understand why you did it, was the Panthers over here, moving them in to whittle down that T-34-85 platoon. I mean, it was tempting just sitting it there, and I was thinking that you might not do it. That's just kind of why I left them on the hill, because I wasn't too worried about it. When you put them there, I was a little surprised, because I thought you would have had 2 turns. If you would have brought those Panthers up right here, and with 2 turns of movement, you probably would have been able to get close enough to at least contest that objective over there. And that would have, that would have at least kept you in for maybe 1 more turn. But that would have left this guy hanging out by himself. I think at that point it would have been a tough win either way for you.
Yeah, it was definitely a swim upstream.
Yeah. I think once you lost the Stugs and that close combat didn't really go your way, I think that it was an uphill battle.
Another thing to actually point out that though that close combat didn't go my way, Joe made the greatest save ever because all 3 of his tanks would have been destroyed.
Oh yeah. I had that 5. I had that 5 up. So yeah, that ended up that top armor 2 was huge this game. But yeah, this is a fun game. Like I said, every once in a while it's nice to just bring out the tanks and blow some stuff up. I still love my infantry blobs, but Tankovy is still a ton of fun, man. Especially when you get to line up against an SS list. It's pretty good shooting all around.
And I'm bringing out the Totenkampf next game, so the undefeated Totenkampf.
I'm gonna have to do something about that. But yeah, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, leave some comments in the bottom what you guys thought. Maybe some other kind of matchups that you guys want to see in the future. But thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys later.